thing that the internet has taught me, it's that you can monetize just about anything.
Ice cream's so good, yes, popcorn. Ice cream's so good.
Imagine my lack of surprise when people monetized the epidemic of sad and lonely men.
Hustle University is the greatest thing that exists on the face of the planet.
That's what I want to teach you on this course.
Unplugging from the matrix of fitness and game.
And you might be thinking, oh, how big is this?
There was a guy called Fugazi, whatever his name was. He blew up a few years ago, and people thought he was a shit. People were saying he was the next Kevin Samuels. He was doing that fresh and fit type videos. What happened to that guy? He was telling people not to get with single moms. And then it turns out he was living with a white lady that was a single mom, not of one, but of 2 or 3 kids. Like even worse. After I've gone through understanding how this works, there's also a lady in Dubai, I've forgotten her name. A few months ago, they found out that she was a side chick, but she had men paying $8,000 for consultations on how to get women.
Business is booming. Dozens of people, loads of YouTube channels that are earning millions of dollars a year selling a lie, claiming to have answers to a very real problem.
Yeah, Fresh and Fit's channel, before they got demonetized on YouTube alone, they were probably cashing in close to $4 million a year, $2 to $4 million a year.
But just making everything worse. So let's go on a journey together. I'm going to put on my Morpheus cosplay and hand you that red pill. We're going down the rabbit hole of truth. I'm red pilling the red pill and breaking these lonely, desperate men out of their Andrew Tate worshipping mind matrix.
That's another thing I never understood. Like, whenever they're in studios, why are they surrounded with women that are at the bottom of what the modern woman represents? Like, they're not sitting there with CEOs and nurses or doctors or lawyers or girls that have regular jobs or girls that are Kroger cashiers. Like just the average girl that has a normal 40-hour week. Those are not the girls that show up to those studios. It's always OnlyFans models. Why have you picked the most degenerate group of women as a standard to classify over 140 million women across the United States of America? Because they knew it's a bunch of lost, lonely men, mostly incels, that haven't really figured life out. A lot of them didn't have dads to teach them. So they're going to rely on these men who, without the internet, would have been considered failures, really, right? To teach them. A lot of them are flawed in their own private lives. How are you going to get any better outcomes? Now we're looking 10 years in, and the data shows things have gotten worse for men.
Question of how we got here comes down to one man, sort of.
Am I successful? Am I competent? Am I achieving things? Am I respected?
Yep, Sadia Khan, that was the lady. Exactly. Thanks for reminding me.
If you start to look at these indicators of your life, you're going to end up being happier.
Now, I do need to say that Andrew Tate himself has said he isn't red pill and that he finds the whole concept and most of the people involved to be cringe, but his unwillingness to co-opt the term is relevant to the reality, and that is his talking points are almost identical to the whole space, and his popularity is what has accelerated the movement. And I do mean accelerated, because even without Andrew Tate or any other manosphere figurehead, this was an inevitability in modern society. We were already headed down this path. Andrew Tate was never the cause, he was simply the most prevalent symptom. Why do I say this? Well, let's answer the question of why it exists in the first place. It'll probably only take you a few minutes to Google search if you've not already seen these very shocking statistics when it comes to the rise of loneliness in men, especially young men. This is the real epidemic that is going to claim more lives than any contagious disease, and it's eroding the very...
Young men are committing the highest rate of it. And a lot of this rate has accelerated over the period that this solution of the red pill was supposed to be. And we 10 years in, there hasn't been any positive outcomes. So if you're a young man, you want to ask yourself this: uh, is it time for men? And I like to use myself as an example. I'm not a messiah, but is it time for men like me that I believe have kind of lived by mirroring the other men that were in my life, my dad, my grandpas, my uncles? I come from a family where there's probably a 90 some percent married rate between the men and the women. So marriage is just part of us culturally. Is it time for guys like me to really like push a certain angle of content where I say the woman is not really the issue? Men have to understand what they need to do to be husbands. And I feel like there is not a lot of literature that teaches men. If you didn't have this growing up on a natural course, there's not a lot of creators online that are. I've seen a lot of conservative outlets like from the Daily Wire guys will talk about it, but it's only a small talking point. They don't really do a day in the life or show exactly like the mechanics of how marriage works in a home.
Foundation of modern society. For the record, this problem does not just envelop men, but it is more prevalent statistically for a multitude of reasons. On the face of it, men have less friends than ever before, they spend less time socializing with the friends that they do have than ever before, they're virgins for far longer, have sex less frequently overall, and they are self-deleting at an alarmingly high rate, with numbers trending upwards greater than ever.
Look at the numbers, man. Look at the self-deleting. I guess that was the keyword I was supposed to use. I didn't know, but just look at these numbers. It's not a good thing. And if you look, the rates, it's almost 1 to 4 between men and women.
Also less likely to seek mental health assistance, more likely to turn to drugs or substance abuse to cope with these factors which don't even play into the self-deleting stat, and are overall becoming increasingly disenfranchised with the world, or most importantly, their place within it. So to answer
So Kim is saying a lot of men are starting to come out and admit that the red pill cult ruined their relationships and warning young men to keep off of it. Yes. I gave you guys the positives where it tells you to comport yourself. It tells you, but it kind of always contradicted itself. It tells you to comport yourself, build great character, have great image, dress well. Even sometimes to the bottom, like Kevin would tell you the perfumes to buy. And I did follow some of his recommendations. So good perfumes, by the way. He was an avid Tom Ford suit person, bought a few of them, but I never got to wear them because I work from home. I don't wear suits. I get the positives, but they pushed the women hate so much that they put women on defense. It forced some of these women to seek relationships with other foreign men in America because the Nigerian men will take you and not complain. So they need a big reset, and that reset has to come from seeing other people do it the right way. The heck, you don't need that prenup. Prenup is for people that don't trust themselves or don't believe in themselves. Are there some women that are going to play games and do that? Yes, but that is why you vet people. Before you marry a woman, try to understand her family, where she's from. Okay, she's from Alabama. Take a trip to Alabama and see how that family lives. A lot of the women from the South, they still have all their traditions intact. Go to that family home, go over there for Thanksgiving, see how that family is, and you will understand. And then these same family members are the ones that are going to help you when you have marital issues. You don't go see a counselor. You call one of the members of the family, you sit down, ones that have been married, and they'll help you. Because a lot of the things you take to a counselor, that counselor's not been married either. They can't help you. Marital support and marital helps come from people that have done it successfully. And there's not a lot of us on the internet that are telling young men that, hey, this internet stuff is going to ruin you. And you have to be very sophisticated to be able to take the positives from the negatives. But I'm here to tell you, I think there's more negative than there is positive, because any group, and I think Chaotic said this on one of our streams, any group that pushes more negative than positive usually tends to fall off. And this is why you're seeing a lot of pushback. A guy, I like his content, MTR, great guy, but his channel is not growing as fast as it was in the early days. That means a lot of men are starting to tune out. And even they are starting to be a little bit more nicer to the women, because they realize that when you shit on women for that long, you can't force them into a relationship when they know that this is what you're saying about them. Like, you've created such a big distrust for 8 to 10 years that a whole generation of women 20 to 30 years old are now, the 20-year-olds are now 30, the 30-year-olds are now 40. They will not be interested in any man that listen to content like that. And what I also find is that because a lot of that content was so time consuming, because every time they go live, you got to come on and listen to their new bullshit. And every time they saw the merchandise, you got to buy it. So instead of saving money, you're spending your money buying their merch, and you're making them richer and richer and richer. You're still getting poorer, because remember, it's additions and subtractions. You're losing money, they're gaining money. They're gaining influence, they're gaining money, they're gaining your time, your precious time, where you spend 3-4 hours with them and not learn a single thing. If you come here for 3 hours and you don't learn anything, you need to unsubscribe from me. And they go back to their sorry lives, and the cycle repeats itself again. And these men invested 5 years, 4 years, maybe 30 on average, $30,000 to $20,000 each, with no outcomes. And now they're realizing that they need to cut this off. You cannot grow by watching these guys. Even those guys don't trust themselves now. That is why they can't get married. They cannot trust themselves because they've come to believe so much in their own conspiracies. They've come to believe that every woman in America is evil, and that a single mother in Colombia with 3 kids is better than an American woman with 1 child. Because that is what you find in Colombia. Guys, I lived there, so don't tell me otherwise, okay? Vivier in Colombia, I lived there, so I know what I'm telling you. 2 and 3. It's very hard. I don't know anyone that has 1 child over there. Most of the times it's 2 and 3, right? So this is all coming out. And I think Zanu said black people should stop marrying each other. I never heard that. Please send me the link. I want to look at it. That's funny. No, I think you should marry whoever is on your program. I think you should look beyond race and think more into alignment, like whoever aligns to you better. That's just how I look at it, right? Of course, there's an advantage to marrying somebody from your community because you have a lot of cultural assimilation. So it makes relationships a lot easier. It makes communication a lot easier. So that is the only advantage. But, you know, people still, people will still get divorced even when they come from the same communities. And that divorce stems from mistrust. The ladies are on TikTok listening to Shira 7, because that again is a negative part of it. Because the Shiras came about to counter the red pill. You know what I'm saying? They came about to counter the red pill. It's the same way we Africans are doing YouTube now to counter the Tariq stuff. We're not doing it earlier, right? So the opposite side will always fight back somehow. That is how the Shira 7s came up. So the women are on the internet praying to be divorced. I've seen Nigerian women say, hey, I can't wait to get divorced. It's become now a goal for a lot of women. And then the men are saying, shoot, the women got to make this, got to be single with no children. They got to not have a degree because they don't want you to even be intelligent or have college. Meanwhile, they can't pay the bills by themselves, and they're talking of 50-50, you pay half, I pay half. Once you move the conversation away from money and you think of money as a collective family asset, there is no feeling towards who's bringing more and who's bringing less. It's just greed. Because if you're 50-50 Okay, Stacy gets a 50, you get your 50, you contribute towards the bills. You're not questioning what I'm using my 50%, my other 50% for. Maybe I'm going on trips with it, I'm buying Gucci bags with it. But if it's a family income, you know how much bills you're supposed to pay. You get all the essentials out. Like we have a Wells Fargo account that automatically takes out exactly all our budgeted bills to the core. So we don't even worry about those bills. It's just done automatically. It does take care of itself. Then we know how much of our money we put in retirement. And then we know that we have to save about 20 to 30% of whatever remains. And it works. And we've done that over the years and it works, right? So we're not over here thinking about how much she makes and how much I make, you know? And two of our side hustles are combined side hustles. So, it's not, you can't even quantify it because we're working together. That is what I want a lot of men to look at this when they're doing finances with women. Like, don't start relationships with the focus on money. Start with the focus on a person's lifestyle, character, family, and traditions. Then the money side, since you are the head of household, lead by example. If you take out greed, because a lot of us are innately greedy people, if you take out greed and you replace that greed with love, you can fix all your financial issues that you have in your relationships. And it won't even be a conversation.
The question of why Andrew Tate, why the Red Pill, why the Manosphere, Sneeko, podcasts like Fresh and Fit, the Red Pill Godfather, Rollo Tomasi, and many others exist, it's very simple. It's because they need to exist. Supply and demand. These people didn't just appear for no reason. They arrived at the right time with the right message. And that is obviously not me giving them my rubber stamp of approval, as I believe each.
But here's the thing. I see your comment here, Gerald. Okay, so only 1 in 4 Black women will marry, at least in the West. I think just generally, more generally, Western women. But how many men will marry? All right. 1 in 4 means there's only one guy that got married. You know what I'm saying? So these statistics are also relational. They're relational. 1 in 4 means, yeah, there's a lot more women than men. I get that. That tells that there's a lot of men also will not get married. Unless they're marrying, if you're saying Black, then maybe they're marrying women of other races. But also, there's not a lot of that either. I mean, the percentage of more Black people will marry their women than they'll marry women of other races. A few of them will. But again, this is something that I think the men had control over, but didn't want to face their demons. And they got finessed by some good talking, articulate men on the internet that are outside of this content life wouldn't have seen the kind of money they are seeing now. Myron was a federal agent. How much money do you think federal agents make? 40, 50,000 in Florida, 40, 50, $60,000 a year. That's how much money they make. So it's not like he was killing it. So he had his own insecurities too. He got over those insecurities when he got some money. But even with his money and him meeting his own definition of what a high value man is, he couldn't keep a Venezuelan chica. That chica ran off. We can never get into the psychology of women and what women want. And I heard the girl ran off with just a regular dude. Because a lot of times the guy, even though they're attracted to your money, when they get closer to you and they see that you're abusive, you're a piece of shit, you don't respect women, they will leave. They'll take as much money as they can, and they'll just get out of it because it's no longer interested. Who wants to be around somebody that is not entertaining, somebody that is not interesting, somebody that is always at war? I mean, Myron Gaines, they were only able to conquer because they got the money, but they've not been able to seal the deal because they've believed in their own conspiracies, and now they cannot trust women. So all they're gonna do is girlfriends, and those girlfriends are other people's girlfriends, as you saw in his example. And then he has to make a whole video to explain to his audience what had happened. Like, Once you start explaining what happened to your relationship, you're no longer credible in my book. You're not.
Each one of the people I just listed, as well as the majority of the manosphere space, is a counterintuitive detriment to young men's lives. For reasons that we'll mostly go over in the next section, this is just me saying that this movement didn't arrive overnight for no reason and brainwash hundreds of millions of men. The male loneliness epidemic was already here. It's a cancer eating society. The manosphere presented itself as chemotherapy.
They got finessed by download, man. That's funny. This guy. This is what I was saying. Like, yeah, maybe they for optics, they had to always put beautiful women. I get that. But if you look, all these women were degenerates. They were OF models. They were women that were selling themselves, right? So if you take the logic, can you imagine? You take the logic of women that have made this kind of decisions for their lives, and you apply that to all women solely for the purpose of other men feeling good. What do you think women that are watching from the other side would think of these men? I think this actually it decreased the attraction for these young women for this cohort of men. They just said, I can't work with these kind of guys. This is why you see, what most men would in this dating pool would consider undesirable, walk down the aisle with good looking women because they were not part of a community like this. Again, I want to give them credit for the things that improved men's aesthetics, that made men physically fit. You go to the gym. If you're a fat fucker and you call them, they're like, hey, you got to go work out. Those were good things because it's healthy for men to not be obese. So it's good, right? It's a good thing. It's healthy for men to dress good, like what they said. That's good. It's a healthy conversation for men to get their money and their incomes up. I've said that here personally myself. That's a good thing. But what is unhealthy is for these men to make their logic stick, to hate women, and then expect that these women will submit after years and years of hating them. And this is why I think the divide has even widened up, and it's not going to get any better. So now the women are going overseas, the men are going overseas. Now with the men, they're bringing a lot of that trouble overseas with them. They are. I mean, you see what they're doing in Colombia right now. They are.
It presented itself as chemotherapy, bringing with it total destruction of the body, but without the added benefit of potentially eradicating the cancer. Not to say there are no good pieces of advice from any of these people, or a well-rationed person couldn't learn a few real truths from these spaces, such as eating right, exercising, socializing.
What did I just say? This is what I said. Eating right, exercising. That's it. If you're, if you listen to them for these things, that is absolutely genius. Because I did a bit of that because I listened to that. Okay, so that's genius. Watching what you eat, your body fat, working out, having mental clarity, dressing well. These were all things that they hit on. But here's the thing. They did very little of this once the money started coming in. So they did this in the beginning, but the content doesn't move. If I make a video right now about eating right, who's going to watch it? Nobody. But if I make a video shitting on Keisha because she came with 10 kids and she's asking for a high value man that makes $300,000 a year, she's crazy, right? I know she's crazy. But that's what the algorithm is going to push, and that's what men are going to watch. So they double down on it. It's the same